My sister accused me of the absurd, and my parents let them booty me. Years later, her acknowledgement apparent a accuracy they never saw coming. I'm Eric, 33, male, and this adventure is about how my sister, I'll alarm her Anne, absolutely destroyed my activity with a lie and what happened afterwards that. But to accept everything, you accept to apperceive what things were like afore it all went bad. Growing up, Anne and I were cool close, allegedly after-peace than best brothers and sisters, alike with the 4-year age gap. We were basically best friends. I perceive that sounds awe-inspiring now, accustomed aggregate that happened, but aback afresh it was aloof normal, you know. I was never the acute kid in school. I consistently struggled with grades and about anesthetized best classes. But I was absolutely into electronics, not like programming or computers, added like demography things afar and putting them back together. I started with old TV remotes and radios I'd acquisition at backyard sales. By the time I was 16, I had this accomplished bureaucracy in my room. Soldering iron, multimeters, boxes abounding of ambit boards and wires. My parents' anticipation it was weird. Abnormally aback I'd absorb hours in there with the aperture locked. Yeah, that becomes important later. But Anne, she got it. She was 10 aback I started accepting austere about it. And she'd aloof sit in my allowance for hours watching me work. She'd ask all these questions about what altered genitalia did, why I was abutting assertive wires, that affectionate of thing. Sometimes she'd advise me adapt my genitalia or authority actuality while I soldered. It was our thing, you know. Our parents absolutely played favorites, though. Anne was this absolute kid, beeline A's, gymnastics team, apprentice council, the accomplished package. Meanwhile, I was about casual classes and spending all my time either in my allowance with electronics or at the skate park. But Anne consistently had my back. Like this one time in my inferior year, I got bent smoker abaft the gym. Instead of absolution me get suspended, Anne fabricated up this accomplished adventure about how I was aloof captivation, the cigarette for addition abroad, who ran away. She alike did the accomplished errant affair to the arch about how I was aggravating. To about-face my activity about, and the abeyance would ruin everything. The arch absolutely bought it. She helped me with homework, too. She was way bigger at answer actuality than my teachers. She'd breach bottomward algebraic problems in a way that absolutely fabricated faculty to me. Allegedly, the abandoned acumen. I accelerating aerial school, to be honest. I looked out for her, too. Actuality, the big brother, I was appealing protective. Maybe too accurate attractive back. Any guy who showed absorption in her had to accord with me first. I wasn't aggravating to be a jerk about it. I aloof didn't appetite some accidental bodies messing with my little sister. Alike aback I started, accepting into trouble, blockage out late, blind with the amiss crowd, and never advised me. She'd awning for me with our parents, accomplish excuses aback I absent curfew. One time I came home at 3 in the morning, and she was sitting on the balustrade cat and mouse for me. Aloof to accomplish abiding, I got home safe. Attractive aback now, maybe we were too close. Maybe that's why it was so accessible for bodies, to accept what she said later. But aback then, it aloof acquainted normal. She was my sister, my best friend, the abandoned actuality who absolutely got me. Our parents approved to get me absorbed in accustomed stuff. They'd assurance me up for sports teams or afterwards academy clubs, but I consistently went aback. To my electronics. The anticipation I was crumbling my time, but Anne would avert me. He's acceptable at it, she'd say. Let him do what he loves. That's the Anne I try to bethink sometimes. The little sister who believed in me aback cipher abroad, did. The one who'd accompany me candy while I was alive on projects, who'd avert me to our parents, who trusted me abundant to appear to me with her problems. This is harder to abode than I anticipation it would be. Aback aggregate started falling apart. I was 18, aloof about accelerating aerial school. Anne was 16 and starting to get absorption from guys at her school. Actuality, the overprotective brother I was, I did what any big brother would do. I bashed them off. Not like I was advance anyone up, aloof fabricated, abiding they knew I was. Watching. There was this one guy, Jake, who was decidedly persistent. A chief guy, active adorned car his parents bought him. Typical affluent kid stuff. I bent him aggravating to get Ann to skip chic with him one day. I allegedly shouldn't accept shoved him a join his car, but appear on, he was 18, aggravating to get my 16-year-old sister to skip school. What brother wouldn't be pissed? That's aback the rumors started. At first, it was aloof whispers. Bodies. At Ann's academy adage actuality about how awe-inspiring it was that I was so protective. Afresh, it got worse. Addition started saying, the acumen I didn't appetite added guys abreast Ann was because I capital her for myself. Ailing actuality like that. I bethink the exact moment I accomplished commodity was absolutely wrong. It was a Tuesday afterward school. Usually, Ann would appear to my allowance to adhere out while I formed on my projects, but this time she aloof went beeline to her room. Aback, I agape on her aperture to analysis on her, she told me to go away. I begin her errand in the kitchen, afterwards that night. Aback, I approved to hug her like I consistently did. Aback, she was upset. She flinched. Absolutely flinched abroad from me. That had never happened before. She decrepit commodity about actuality, annoyed, and went aback, to her room. The abutting few. Canicule were weird. She chock-full advancing to my room, chock-full talking to me at all. Really, I ample she was aloof activity through some boyish appearance or something. I should accepted better. Afresh one morning, I'm alive on this, old radio I'd found, and I apprehend edition animate version on our advanced door. Not like accustomed knocking, that loud official affectionate of beating that anon makes your abdomen drop. 2 cops and some developed in a clothing were continuing there. Aback, my dad opened the door. They asked to allege with him abreast first. I could apprehend them talking in the kitchen, but couldn't accomplish out what they were saying. Afresh, my dad alleged me down. I'll never balloon the attending on his face like he was attractive at a stranger. The developed in the clothing alien herself as actuality from Adolescent Accurate Services, CPS. She said they bear to ask me some questions about my accord with Ann. Turns out Ann had gone to her advice advisor and told them I'd been this, is still adamantine to write, affecting her inappropriately. She said that's why I was consistently in my allowance with the aperture locked, that I fabricated her appear in there, and, yeah, you can amount out the rest. She told them I'd threatened. To aching her if she any time told anyone, said that's why I was so advancing with guys who showed absorption in her. She alike said, I acclimated the cyberbanking actuality as a cover, that the affairs and zip ties in my allowance were for added things. My dad didn't alike catechism it. Not once. He aloof stood there comatose as they talked, like a back aggregate, fabricated faculty to him. All those hours in my room, the bound door, the protectiveness over Ann. In his mind, it all added up to commodity sick. I proved to explain, showed them my projects, the half-fixed radio on my desk, the boxes of ambit boards and old electronics. I approved to acquaint them about how Ann acclimated to sit and watch me work, how she'd advise me adapt parts, but they'd already fabricated up their minds. The CPS developed kept allurement these arch questions. Did you accomplish Ann feel appropriate by absolution, her advice you? Did you acquaint her? She was altered from added girls. Aggregate, I said aloof. Fabricated it. Complete worse. Aback, they asked about the time I pushed Jake. Ann had askance that, too. She said I was anxious because she was starting to like added. Guys, that I couldn't handle her growing up and accepting accustomed relationships because it meant accident ascendancy over her. The affliction part, she had this accomplished adventure about how I'd started accepting added advancing afresh because she was affairs away. How I'd told her she was betraying me by talking to added guys, None of it was true, but the way she told it, alike I about believed it. And afresh, I absent, it appropriate there in advance of everyone. Anne, what the hell are you saying? My articulation cracked, not from anger, but from arduous disbelief. She wouldn't attending at me. Anne, attending at me. She kept her eyes. On the floor, accoutrements captivated about herself like she was some brittle little affair that bare protection. That little act aloof fabricated me angrier. You apperceive this isn't true. You apperceive it. I affronted to our dad, desperate. Dad, appear on. You apperceive me. I would never. His articulation was low, steady, but his face, I'd never apparent. Him attending at me like that before. Not disappointed, not angry, aloof, done. You don't alike appetite to apprehend me out. I took a footfall forward, but he put his duke up like I was some affectionate of threat. Anne flinched. She flinched. That was it. That was a back, I knew. You can't actively accept this. My articulation dropped. All the action aback drained out of me. I looked at Anne again. Absolutely looked at her. She still wouldn't accommodated my eyes. Why are you accomplishing this? I whispered. She assuredly looked up. For a moment, it seemed like she was activity to say something, maybe a like booty it all back. But afresh, she glanced at Dad, at the CPS lady, at the cop continuing in our active room. And that's aback she angled down, her eyes abounding with tears. She took a all-a-quiver animation and whispered, I'm sorry, Eric. And, appropriate afresh. I understood. She wasn't activity to booty it aback because it was too late, because she was in too deep, because she was abashed of the consequences. I laughed, absolutely laughed. Wow, I said. You're absolutely accomplishing this. You're absolutely accomplishing this. Anne awkward her accoutrements about herself tighter. I aloof couldn't accumulate it in any more. Dad clenched his jaw. Get your things. We're activity to the station. And that was it. No trial, no evidence, no absolute questions. Aloof, my dad active me to the badge base in silence, like I was already guilty, like I was a stranger, like I wasn't his son anymore. On the way to the badge station, all I could anticipate about was how they fabricated it all fit. The abandoned. Beforehand, brother who spent all his time abandoned in his room. The awe-inspiring amusement with all the accoutrement and wires, the advancing protectiveness, the abutting accord that aback affronted bad. They saw absolutely what they capital to see. The account allowance at the badge base was absolutely like you see in movies. They larboard me sitting there for what acquainted like hours afore two detectives came in. The macho detective, Rivers, played acceptable cop, kept adage actuality, like, we aloof appetite to accept what happened, Eric. Advice us, advice you. The changeable detective, I don't bethink her name, aloof sat their demography addendum and giving me these looks like I was dirt. Rivers started activity through my electronics hobby. Acquaint me about the things you build, he said, aggravating to complete interested. So I explained about acclamation old radios, architecture simple circuits, basal stuff, and Anne would advise you with these projects. Yeah, she'd adapt parts, authority actuality while I soldered. She admired acquirements about it. The changeable detective cut in. So, you'd accept her abandoned in your room? Aperture locked? Administration your equipment. That's aback it hit me. How they were AG everything. Every accustomed affair aback articulate wrong. They kept blame about the bound door. I bound it because I had big-ticket tools. I proved explaining. Dad would borrow actuality and not. Put it back. Or maybe, Rivers said, his articulation accepting harder. You bound it for added reasons. They had this accomplished book of affirmation and statements about how I'd started affecting her aback she was 12. Appropriate aback she started accepting interested. In my projects, how I acclimated the electronics as a way to abstract her, fabricated her feel appropriate by teaching her things no one abroad knew. That's insane, I said. She's my sister. I was teaching her because she was interested. The changeable detective leaned forward, absorbed in electronics or abashed of what would appear if she wasn't. Afresh, they brought up the Jake incident. But in their version, I'd attacked him because he was demography and abroad from me. They had statements from added kids at Academy about how accurate I was, how I'd abashed abroad any guy who came abreast her. Rivers pulled out some photos of my allowance taken that morning. They'd fabricated it attending like some affectionate awake chamber. Close-ups of my tools, the wires, the zip ties I acclimated for cable management, alike my activity addendum attending adverse in their photos. Your ancestor says you'd absorb hours abandoned with Anne in this room. Rivers said, want to acquaint us what absolutely happened in there. I absented, started babble about how they were authoritative accustomed brother-sister actuality complete perverted. Bad move. Rivers aloof nodded like I'd accepted something. Classic arresting reaction, he said to his partner. Afresh, they brought up my grades, my abridgment of friends, the hours abandoned in my room. They congenital this accomplished contour of an isolated, ambiguous guy bedeviled with his sister. They weren't aloof investigating. They were architecture case. And the added I denied it. The added accusable I looked. My lawyer, if you could alike alarm her that, about fought back. We charged to exceed a appeal deal, she told me, as if it was my abandoned option. If this goes to trial, you could be adverse 20 years in prison. Afterwards, hours of this, Rivers assuredly said, Look, Eric, here's the deal. We accept abundant for charges, austere charges, but if you assignment with us, accept what happened, and appearance remorse, we can advise you. I didn't do annihilation. Wrong, I said for allegedly the 100th time. Afresh explain why Anne would accomplish this up. I couldn't because it didn't accomplish sense. My sister, who I'd adequate and cared for, who acclimated to delay up to accomplish abiding, I got home safe. Why would she do this? The abutting allotment is affectionate of a blur. There were affairs with lawyers. My parents had assassin one for Anne, but told me I had to acquisition my own. The accessible apostle they gave me was beginning out of law academy, and already assertive I was guilty. She told me my options. I could action it, but she fabricated it bright that acceptable. Wasn't likely. Juries accept victims, she said flatly, and Anne is young, emotional, and convincing. She laid out the reality. If I went to trial, I was adverse a abeyant 20 years in prison. The appeal accord was mercy, 5 years probation, lifetime registry, but no jail. If you booty this to balloon and lose, she warned, you won't get addition chance. My own parents weren't alike in my corner. Dad aloof befuddled his head. Don't put your sister through a trial, he said. Aloof booty the deal. But I'm innocent, I said. They all say that, she replied afterwards, attractive up from her papers. They accept your sister's testimony, affidavit of behavioral changes, attestant statements about your accurate behavior. No board will accept you over a traumatized 16-year-old girl. My dad came to see me already afore I took the deal. Hadn't apparent him aback, he abandoned me at the station. I anticipation maybe he'd assuredly apprehend the truth. Instead, he said, just accept what you did, Eric. Don't accomplish your sister go through a trial. Dad, please, I begged. You apperceive me. You apperceive I'd never. He cut me off. I anticipation, I knew you. Guess I didn't. That was the aftermost absolute chat I had with my father. 2 canicule later, I took the deal, pled no challenge. To animal advance of a minor, I got 5 years acquittal and a lifetime on the registry. Some of you ability admiration why I'd appeal if I was innocent. Accuracy is, they breach you. They booty every accustomed affair about your activity and aberration it until you can't alike assurance your own memory. And aback everyone, your family, the cops, alike your own lawyer, believes you're guilty. You alpha cerebration, Maybe angry is pointless. Actuality on the account destroys your activity and means you'd never expect. Anybody talks about the big stuff. Can't alive abreast. Schools, can't get assertive jobs, etc. But it's the baby things that absolutely get to you. The Aboriginal abode I approved to hire afterwards, everything. The developed was all set to let me assurance the lease. Afresh, she did the accomplishments check. I still bethink her face aback she saw what came up. She absolutely backed abroad. From me, like I was activity to advance her appropriate there in her office. "I'm sorry," she said. "I accept grandchildren who visit. I'm abiding you, understand." That became my life. Bodies, actuality, apologetic, while alleviative me, like some affectionate. Of monster. Finding assignment was a nightmare. Best places wouldn't alike attending at my appliance already. They saw I had to analysis that box. The few interviews I did get usually concluded the aforementioned way. "Will alarm you." They never did. Finally, I begin. This guy, Mike, who ran a baby accomplishment shop. He assassin bodies others wouldn't. Ex-cons, addicts aggravating to get apple pie guys like me. Pay was debris, and the assignment was hard. But at Atomic, it was something. Look, Mike told me my Aboriginal day. I don't affliction what you did. Aloof appearance up on time and do your job. I formed there for about 2 years. A fresh addition. Begin out about me and started causing problems. Cogent added workers they shouldn't accept to assignment with addition like me, that I was dangerous. Mike approved to angle up for me, but eventually he had to let me go. Can't, accident. My accomplished workforce, he said. At Atomic, he gave me appropriate severance pay. I absent my accommodation appropriate afterwards that. Concluded up active in my car for a while. A Planet Fitness Associates became my best friend. $10 ages for abode to battery and use the bathroom. I'd esplanade in 24-hour Walmart lots to sleep. Security usually larboard you abandoned if you didn't account trouble. The affliction allotment wasn't alike the applied stuff, though. It was watching activity go on afterwards me through alternate a company on Facebook afore they banned me. I saw Anne admission Aerial Academy with honors, activity to Academy on a abounding scholarship, affair this affluent guy, Billy, at some campus event. Meanwhile, I was bistro algid ravioli from a can in my car, aggravating to a Mount Out area. I could esplanade for the night afterwards excepting hassled by cops. I fabricated the aberration of aggravating to date once. Met this babe Sarah at one of my jobs. She was nice, didn't ask too abounding questions about my past. We went out a few times. Things were activity well. Afresh, she asked why I consistently had to analysis the abode of wherever we were going. I, absentively to be honest, told her about the allotment requirement, how I had to be accurate about area I went. I approved to explain that I was innocent, that it was a apocryphal accusation. She said she bare time to think. The abutting day, her brother and 2 of his company showed up at my work. I had to abdicate that job too. I started blind out at this little library annex afterwards that. The librarian there, she affectionate of ample out my situation, but never said anything. She'd aloof leave books she anticipation I'd like on the allotment cart. Lots of abstruse manuals, electronics books. Guess she'd noticed what I usually read. One day she bent me attractive at online courses, sat bottomward, and helped me acquisition. Chargeless ones I could take. Education is everyone's right, she said. She was the abandoned actuality who advised me like an animal actuality in years. I started acquirements about cryptocurrency through those courses. Ample, it was commodity. I could do afterwards anyone blockage my background. Affronted out, I had a adroitness for compassionate the abstruse ancillary of it. Fabricated a little money actuality and there trading. But you apperceive what absolutely messed me up? Seeing comments on Anne's amusing media, all these bodies, talking about how adventurous she was. How amazing it was that she'd affected her agony to be so successful. She alike wrote this commodity for her Academy cardboard about actuality, a survivor. Bodies were calling her an inspiration. Meanwhile, I was about surviving. Funny how that works, right? I acclimated to anticipate about aggravating to bright. My name. But who would accept me? Anne was this absolute acknowledged academy student. I was aloof, some bend active in his car. The arrangement doesn't affliction about bodies like me. That's how I spent best of my 20s. Moving from job to job, abode to place. Never blockage anywhere connected abundant for bodies to acquisition out about me. Never authoritative a company. Because what's the point a back they'll aloof leave already they know. Some nights I'd lie in my car attractive at old ancestors' photos on my phone. Pictures of me and Anne aback we were kids aggravating to a mount out area, it all went wrong. What? I could accept done differently. That's the affair about actuality on the list. It doesn't aloof booty abroad your freedom. It takes abroad your past, your future, your accomplished identity. You stop actuality a actuality and become a label. But a back aggregate changed. It was aloof a accustomed Tuesday. I was at work, begin addition branch job, bigger than the aftermost one. Aback I got this email from some clandestine investigator. I about deleted it, cerebration it was spam, but commodity fabricated me apprehended. The PI said he'd been assassined by Anne's husband, Billy, to attending into her past. Guess she'd been acting awe-inspiring lately, and Billy started digging. The PI had begin inconsistencies in her adventure about me and capital to talk. I abandoned it at first, had abundant bodies blend with my activity already. But a fresh he beatific edition email with affidavit, he was legit. Court documents, case files, actuality I'd never apparent before. We met at this booth aloof al fresco. Town. The PI, I'll alarm him, Frank, had this massive binder of documents. Your sister's adventure is falling apart, he said, overextension affidavit beyond the table. Been accomplishing this job 30 years, never apparent addition blend up there. Own lie this bad. Turns out Anne had been sloppy. Absolutely sloppy. The timeline she gave about a back actuality allegedly happened didn't bout Academy records. The attestant statements from her friends, they afflicted every time she told the story. But what absolutely blindsided me was this. Bethink Jake, the chief who kept hitting on her. Turns out he wasn't aloof, some guy sniffing about and had been secretly dating him. And not aloof that. She got bent in his car accomplishing things she absolutely wasn't declared to be doing. She was assertive, I was activity to acquaint our parents about it. Maybe because she knew I'd consistently been protective. Or maybe aloof, out of authentic panic. Either way, she bare a distraction. Commodity big enough, abominable abundant to accomplish abiding no one alike anticipation about Jake. So, she fabricated up the accusations, alive that already those words were out. Annihilation abroad would matter. Frank had texts amid Anne and her company from a back then. Screenshots she anticipation were deleted. In them, she absolutely planned the accomplished thing, talked about how she bare a nuclear advantage to accumulate me quiet. She didn't apprehend it to go as far as it did, Frank said. Account these messages, it seems like she anticipation they'd aloof accelerate you abroad to alive with ancestors or something. Aback your dad went abounding broiled earth, she was too abashed to booty it back. I aloof sat there account through everything, seeing affidavit of what I'd accepted all along. Frank kept talking. Billy assassined me because she's been acting. Aberrant lately, bubbler too much, accepting paranoid. He began her errant over old ancestors' photos one night. Aback he asked about you, she absolutely shut down. That's aback, he alleged me. A fresh Frank pulled out one aftermost document, a active acknowledgement from Anne. Billy had confronted her with all the evidence and she bankrupt bottomward and told him everything. I charge you to accept something, Frank said. This isn't activity to magically fix everything. The acknowledged arrangement doesn't like acceptance, it fabricated a mistake, but it's a start. He larbored me with copies of everything. I spent that accomplished night a count through it all. The altercation area she planned it. The acknowledgement area she assuredly accepted the truth. I alike begin some posts she fabricated on some appointment, allurement, how to accomplish corruption allegations added believable. The abutting day, I alleged a lawyer, a absolute one this time, not some busy, accessible apostle who had already absentatively I was guilty. We filed for post-conviction abatement based on new evidence. My advocate said Anne's confession, accumulated, with the discrepancies Frank uncovered, was able abundant to abandon my confidence and get me removed from the registry. It took months of hearings, but eventually a adjudicator disqualified in my favor. My almanac was wiped clean. I should accept. Acquainted relief. I should accept acquainted something, but all I could anticipate about was how connected it had taken, how abundant I had absent in the process. An anniversary later, an envelope landed in my mailbox. No acknowledgement address, but I knew who. It was from a four I alike opened it. My parents, the aboriginal acquaintance in 10 years. My easily befuddled as I tore it open. Not from excitement, aloof, arduous disbelief. Central was a letter accounting in my dad's stiff, abstract handwriting. The capital to accommodate it said Anne had assuredly appear clean. Well, partially. She spun some watered bottomward adaptation of the truth, painting herself as the abashed little babe who fabricated a abhorrent mistake. No acknowledgement of the affected lies, the years of adversity she put me through, but allegedly it was abundant. For them to assuredly accept I was innocent. Tucked central, the envelope was the analysis for $50,000. A cardinal that allegedly acquainted acceptable to them, like it could somehow abolish a decade of actuality advised like a monster, like it could buy back my base-born years, my dignity, my life. I captivated it up to the ablaze for a second, afresh laughed. Annihilation had changed. They still anticipation problems could be apparent with the amount tag. Money wasn't what I needed. I bear the accuracy to be known, and I bear to apprehend. It from addition else's mouth. So I took the cardinal from Frank and alleged him. My easily were afraid aback I assuredly dialed. He answered afterwards a few rings, his articulation wary. "Hello, Billy. This is Eric." There was a connected pause, a fresh cautiously. "Eric? Who?" I let that bite for additional afore answering. "Anne's brother." Silence, a fresh, a low, humorless chuckle. That's funny because Anne never mentioned accepting a brother. Never mentioned any family, actually. I swallowed bottomward. The actual acrimony ascent in my chest. Yeah, that tracks. Can't accept the skeletons in her closet out active their mouths, right? Billy exhaled sharply. Jesus, I knew she was ambuscade things, but this. I've been affiliated to this woman for years, had a kid with her, and I didn't alike apperceive. She had a brother. Not one she didn't absolutely abort first, I said flatly. There was addition abeyance afore he muttered, "Unbelievable." His articulation had that bound bend of addition acumen aloof how acutely they'd been played. Afresh he sighed, and aback he batten again. His articulation was firm. Final. I'm filing for divorce. I didn't say annihilation at first, aloof let. The weight of his words achieve amid us. Afresh finally, I nodded a like acceptance he couldn't see me. "Good," I said. "You deserve better. I frayed up afterwards that. No point in adage annihilation else." But as I set my buzz down, a aberrant faculty of abatement done over me. Afresh I begin the amusing media posts. Anne deactivated all her accounts, but not afore announcement this connected acknowledgement about how she'd remembered things amiss as a teenager. Fabricated herself complete like the victim somehow. Poor, abashed babe who fabricated a mistake. Now, bravely advanced with the truth. Her absolute activity started falling afar afterwards that. Billy filed for divorce. The academy area she worked, yeah, she became a teacher. Imagine that. Asked her to resign. Turns out they don't like accepting agents who've accepted to authoritative apocryphal corruption allegations. I begin out afterwards that Billy got a bounding aegis of their kid, acclimated Anne's acknowledgement to prove she was unstable. She approved to action it, but Frank's analysis had bald-headed. Added lies, too. Lots of them. The absolute truth. She'd been lying about aggregate for years, not aloof about me. She fabricated up belief about added people, too. Had this accomplished arrangement of accusing guys of actuality aback things. Didn't go her way. Some bodies asked why she assuredly confessed. According to Frank, my parents had started acquainted things. Anne had been acting aberrant for months. Dematerialization for hours afterwards, explanation, accepting abrupt outbursts over nothing, bubbler too abundant at ancestors' gatherings. But the final harbinger came aback. She slipped up during an acrimonious altercation with my mom. She blurted commodity out, commodity about how Eric wouldn't accept suffered if Dad hadn't overreacted. My mom froze, apprenticed her for details. Anne approved to backtrack, but it was too late. The agnosticism had already been planted. My dad, any time the authoritative amount started digging, he accomplished out to bodies from Anne's past, alike, alleged her old Ariel Academy friends, and, aloof like that, the cracks in her adventure started showing. By the time Billy assassined Frank, Anne was already spiraling, aggravating to application calm, a lie that was bound falling apart. So aback Billy confronted her with the evidence, the texts, the inconsistencies, the affidavit she anticipation was connected buried, she broke. And that's aback my buzz rang. It was my mother. Her articulation was shaky, like she had been errant for hours. Eric, please, we charged to talk. I about afraid up appropriate then, but commodity in her accent kept me on the line. She started circuitous about Anne, about how she had assuredly told them her ancillary of things, how she accepted she had fabricated some mistakes, but that she had been young, scared, confused. She's not the aforementioned actuality anymore, my mother insisted. She's broken, Eric. She cries every day. She knows she broke your life and she can about alive with herself. Afresh, they absolutely asked, can't you aloof absolve her? That fabricated my claret boil. Forgive. As if she had adopted my car and comatose it. As if she had baseborn some money from me. As if she hadn't bear abroad my absolute life. Larboard me in charcoal while she got to move on and comedy the victim. For years. You don't understand, my mom continued. She's adversity now, too. That was the moment I absentatively to accommodated them. Not for closure, not to clean some burst ancestors' bond. I capital them to apperceive absolutely what they did to me. Fine, I said, let's meet. But I already knew how it was activity to end. We met at this restaurant center amid our cities. Mom started errant as anon as she saw me. Dad aloof sat there, attractive, old, and broken. Guess accepting your aureate adolescent about face out to be a cheat does that to you. Mom approved to hug me. I stepped back. Let's aloof sit down, I said. They had this accomplished accent, able about how apologetic they were, how they should accept believed me, how they capital to clean our family. Dad alike pulled out his checkbook again. Like throwing money at it would fix everything. Put that away, I told him. I didn't appear actuality for your money. Mom kept adage actuality like, we were aloof aggravating to assure your sister. And we did what we anticipation was appropriate at the time. Authoritative excuses like always. I let them allocution themselves out. Afresh, I pulled out the binder Frank gave me, started to count Anne's texts out loud, the one's area she planned. The accomplished thing. I watched their faces as they accomplished aloof how abominably their adored babe had played them. She was scared. Mom approved to avert her. She was aloof a child. I was about an adult, I said. Area was my protection. Area was my account of the doubt. Dad approved next. We apperceive we messed up. We appetite to accomplish it right. Accomplish it right. I laughed. You appetite to accomplish it right? Can you accord me aback my 20s? Can you disengage the registry? The jobs I lost, the bodies who advised me like garbage, they aloof sat there, assuredly active out of excuses. I told them aggregate afresh about active in my car, showering at Planet Fitness, bistro algid aliment because I couldn't allow a boat with a kitchen. I showed them the scars on my wrists from my everyman point. Mom threw up in the restaurant. Bathroom. For the aboriginal time in years, my parents were assuredly affected to sit with the truth, the actual affidavit that they had befuddled abroad their own son afterwards hesitation, that their aureate adolescent wasn't aureate at all. I watched them sit there in abashed silence, their absolute apple crumbling in absolute time. You did this, I said, articulation steady. You let it happen. My ancestor looked like he capital to argue, like he capital to avert himself. But for once he didn't. He aloof stared at the table, jaw clenched. Mom, though, she still tried. Eric, we were aloof aggravating to assure her. We anticipation we were accomplishing the appropriate thing. I leaned back, absolution out a apathetic breath. You apperceive what the affliction allotment is? I get that. I do. If I absolutely was some affectionate of monster, you would accept, been accomplishing what any appropriate ancestor should do. But you never alike gave me a chance. Not once. You absentatively, I was accusable because it was easier than analytic Anne, and you let me rot for it. Tears streamed bottomward her face. We were wrong, she whispered. We were so wrong. I let that sit for a moment because, yeah, they were wrong. They were added, then wrong. But annihilation, they said, could any time disengage what I had lost. The 10 years of my activity area, I wasn't a person, aloof a label. Mom accomplished beyond. The table, her duke shaking. Please, Eric, we can't change the past, but we're still your parents. Can we at Atomic try to fix this? I pulled my duke aback before she could blow me. Fix it, I scoffed. Acquaint me, Mom. How absolutely do you fix 10 years? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Dad assuredly spoke. You accept, every appropriate, to abhorrence us. His articulation was horsaged. But we're still your family. I befuddled my head. No, you chock-full actuality my ancestors the moment you absentively I wasn't a count angry for. Abundant blackout acclimatized amid us. They had accepted anger, maybe alike screaming, but I was accomplished all of that. I didn't charge to yell. They were drowning in their own answerability afterwards, me adage addition word. A fresh mom played her aftermost card. Anne is adversity too, Eric. I stared at her. Of course, of advance she would say that. She absent. Everything. She continued. Her marriage, her career, her friends. She adapted to. I cut in, articulation cold. Mom recoiled like I had slapped her. She fabricated a choice, I said, leveling my boring at them both. She, Arya, and I paid the price. But you... I looked anon at my father, who flinched beneath my stare. You fabricated a choice, too. You believed her afterwards additional thought. You let them booty me afterwards hesitation. Dad shut his eyes for a moment, as if he could block out the truth. Mom's articulation was about a loft, a whisper. She's not the aforementioned actuality anymore. I let out a dry chuckle. Neither am I. And that was the absolute tragedy, wasn't it? The actuality they had known. The boy who spent hours in his allowance, acclamation radios who would accept done annihilation for his little sister. He was gone. They had active him a decade ago, aback they let the cops booty me away. I affective the analysis my ancestor had put on the table earlier. $50,000, a cardinal they had allegedly pulled out of attenuate air, cerebration money could abolish what they had done. I stared at it for a second. Afresh, ripped it in half. I don't charge your money, I said. I don't charge annihilation from you." Mom started sobbing. Dad said nothing. He aloof sat there like a man assuredly acumen he had absent commodity he could never get back. I stood up. "You fabricated your choice," I said quietly. "Now you get to alive with it." I absolved out afterwards attractive back. I didn't feel annihilation aback I larboard that restaurant. No blitz of victory, no weight off my shoulders, aloof nothing. And maybe that was the absolute closure. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. No acknowledgement address, but I knew who it was from afore I opened it. It was from Anne. I stared at the envelope for a connected time afore, assuredly. "Aperture it. The letter central was short. I don't apprehend you to absolve me. By aloof capital to say I'm sorry. That was it. No excuses, no explanation, aloof that. I captivated it for a moment, afresh set it down, and I never wrote back. And, yeah, activity didn't magically become absolute afterwards that. The accident had been done, and I would consistently backpack the scars of those 10 years, but I was assuredly free, absolutely free. With my almanac expugned, I could assuredly alive afterwards the weight of my accomplished blind over me. I, confused to a new city, started fresh, congenital up my electronics adjustment business from the arena up, and I never looked back. My parents, and all of it, they became ghosts of the activity I had larbored behind. Maybe one day I'd anticipate about them and feel something. But for now, I was assuredly active my activity on my own terms.